And studying the passage of time involves longitudinal work. You have to follow people over time and see what happens to them, or follow any living organism over time and see what happens. And that's different than age. Age is just kind of a number, a value, versus aging, which is the changes that happen to individuals over time. Another way to study gerontology is the aged. Study just old people. This is the problem with a lot of gerontology studies. They focus just on old people. But if you want to understand aging, if you're studying the aged, you missed a lot of it. Because, first of all, not everyone lives that old, so you've lost what was different about those who didn't make it to that point. And you see the changes that only happen at the tail end of life, and you don't see the whole process. So that's one thing that the Andrus Gerontology Center research has been changing over time. It started off focusing largely on the aged, focusing on the needs of the older people and the issues that affect older people. We're turning back the clock a bit and looking more at the process from a longer viewpoint to see what is aging. And so now, just because the study involves children doesn't mean it doesn't involve aging. So a lot of our data sources begin at later ages. The Health and Retirement Survey, the largest longitudinal study of aging, begins at age 50. So we can say aging from ages 50 and above, but we don't really have a great longitudinal data set yet that has from young age to old age. That's nationally representative, I should say. There are studies that track people throughout their entire life, and some studies do analyze data looking at changes in people throughout their life. But if we really want to understand aging, what we need to do is we need to track a large number of people over a very long period of time to see what are the patterns and what factors are associated with more what we term successful aging. We'll get into that a little later, versus those who have more problems and more difficulties with aging. Gerontology is kind of the intersection of studying age itself, the aging process, and people or individuals who are already aged. And that's where the biology, psychology, sociology come into play. And this figure has an outer ring that shows all of this process happens within a different context, a cultural context, a different economic context, and other environmental factors, and history. That gets into age, period, and cohort effects. We're going to discuss these in great depth. These are different ways of studying the aging process itself. Period is the time period in which you live. So for people who lived 100 years ago, the environment that they lived in was much different. So we've mentioned about I will mention about life expectancy and changes in life expectancy, and a lot of those changes are related to period effects. So public health was different for people in the last century than it was in, public health issues are different for people living in the 1800s, say, than people living in the 1900s and people living in the 2000s. So period is kind of the broad time frame in which you're in. Cohort is a way of viewing people based on when they were born. So with cohort, we're looking at people that were all born within a range of time. And cohorts have different perspectives of the world. The most famous cohort is the baby boom cohort. You'll often hear people born 1946 to 1964. And they are distinct from the cohorts before, particularly children of the Great Depression. They have different distinct views about how to deal with money, distinct views about preparing for retirement, and other social views. So when we study gerontology, this age, period, and cohort, these are all very fascinating concepts. And as we'll get into later in the course, you can't separate all three at the same time. They all interact and help define who you are. All right. So I highly recommend this article by Elkima and Ali. I think it really gets at kind of was the heart of the issues in gerontology and how gerontology works. Gerontology is a mix of fields, and each field contributes in its own way, and they work together to contribute differently.